Good morning.
Good morning.
Wonderful to hear about last night.
Thank you. It was a really good trip, and it was fun to share with everyone that was praying so diligently for us.
It was a neat experience for us all, for our end as well. So it was a God thing. Hi
Oh,
there.
It's almost
Amanda,
like we pray for that.
Amanda, you changed your camera angle just as I was about to give you an English greeting.
An
I was
English
gonna say,
reading. What was
I was going to say top of the morning and top of the head because I can only see the top of your head.
that? Top of the
But you've adjusted your video, so
yeah, you had one. You had one. Uh, so how did you get some rest at all?
yeah,
What? What's that?
I did.
Cool. Good. If anything, that's what I was hoping you'd accomplish on Friday is getting ahead of this.
Yeah, I'm getting back to my what I'll call a normal sleep pattern.
Oh no.
Relatively normal.
Yeah. I slept for the first time all through the night last night. I didn't know what the heck to expect. I was like, yeah.
Are some of the African pastors going to join
I
more?
don't I don't know. It's hard to say
Okay.
um, whether they will or not.
How are you going to be able to support them in their personal growth? That's a lot of pastors.
Well, we have national groups in most countries.
Uh-huh.
So we have bishops and apostles in those countries that help with that.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah, the task for 2025 based on um, what we saw there this time is to help them get better organized.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Cool. It's just fascinating. Besides starting the school over there for, I assume, like a seminary kind of thing to train up pastors in Africa.
Uh-huh.
Um, do you see yourself being a part of that, being there physically more often?
Well, I certainly would like to do that. Um, we the thing that really changed in this, in what happened when we were there this time was the word from the Lord that told us to establish these apostolic vision centers, apostolic training centers in Zambia and perhaps in Kenya and Malawi once one. Um, so catching, basically we have that vision in a word. We don't have an image of what that's going to look like yet.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's some pieces that are already in motion, but
Right.
haven't really haven't really accelerated. So once we get and once we fill out the bones of the vision a little bit,
Yeah,
one of the one of the things which is um, seems obvious is that it's going to require substantially more finances
yeah,
than what we've come up with. Because basically, when we go, the group of us who go, we spend 2 years raising money
yeah,
Yeah.
to be able to go,
yeah,
and um, and then we get some other donations that kind of fill in the gaps
yeah,
because we have to, we have to help them with food, we have to help them with a number of things,
right.
costs on the ground. So once we, um, that's kind of how we put together our trips.
Try to
Yeah.
sit up.
And
I know.
it's not easy to put that money together with such a small group of people,
Correct.
and most of it being contributed by, you know, six or five, six, seven individuals.
I know where some more.
So
We can grab some.
when we look at the difference between putting that together and then putting together a building project,
Yeah,
purchasing land or preparing land and putting a building up and then staffing it and training people and all of the year to year cost, it's a daunting task compared to what we've been doing.
yeah,
And
yeah,
we never really envisioned us doing that. I mean,
right.
our was that we would just train these leaders and help them get the structure and then provide some oversight, and they would launch their national organizations and carry it on for 100 years.
Yeah,
So now, with that one prophecy, the vision for what God wants us to do is changed. And now we have to pray and seek his provision for that.
yeah,
So what I'm thinking is, well, if God wants us to do that and we're hearing him right, then there's going to be additional funding sources that will have to show up.
right.
And with those additional funding sources showing up, there might be the possibility of us going more often.
I see.
So funding not only for the building, but funding for the establishment
Yeah,
of the centers. And I would think, and again, this is just me thinking, not a word from the Lord. I would think that would require me being there more often,
no kidding.
to establish those things. But we have a long way to go before we get there. And the Lord could accelerate it, but in terms of things that have to be done, there's a lot of things that have to be done. To get from where we are now, what we've been doing for the last 10 years, to what it appears that the Lord has put before us to do
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
coming years.
yeah. I just was wondering, it just a lot of curiosity after hearing it. So I didn't mean to push you a direction that you don't know.
No, that's fine. Those are really good questions. They're the same questions I'm asking.
Okay, okay.
I don't have the answers for them.
Yeah, understandably.
Our when we pray every night, I have those same questions to the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Getting the
nothing's
teaching.
impossible for God. So
Oh my God.
You're
we need
right.
all the right people in place as well. The whole picture.
What were you going to say, Dave?
Getting the school set up is also our very next step, kind of concurrent with keeping our eyes open and watching on how we're supposed to do the Apostolic Vision Center.
Yeah.
I really see provision being released directly to Africa.
Good.
I think they're going to support it. It's almost like how the Middle East got very rich very quickly. It almost looks like that. There's just going to be an abundance of natural resources released into Africa.
That'd be cool.
They're facing the same thing when they travel to other countries. They have to support it in some way.
Yeah.
When the Apostolic Center is functioning and I don't want to say producing apostles, but when they start being sent out, that's going to take provision as well.
Yeah.
There's a whole there's a whole infrastructure, both physically, spiritually, and financially, that um,
Yeah.
the Lord has to provide
Yeah.
in order for what we've seen bits and pieces of, in order for that to come into existence in the physical realm. I'm just trying to see it in the spiritual realm at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because, once I see it, then it's done. Then it's just a matter of implementing basically implementing, grabbing onto the resources the Lord's providing, and doing what we see the Father doing. So that's, my prayer time has been, okay, Lord, how are you going to do this? I want to
Yeah.
line, I
Yeah.
want to line up with how you're going to do it. I can
Yes.
imagine all kind of things, but I want to line up with how you're going to do it, and see what he does. I mean, there's so many things that have happened in my life over the years that are potential resources for getting this thing started. Um, but the Lord hasn't released any of those to fund ministry up till now. So I'm looking to see if he's saying that he's going to provide something to get it started, so that when the funds begin to flow, like Dave mentioned, in Africa, that that we'll be ready um, to utilize those, and we'll have an infrastructure in place, and all of those things will be rolling up. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it and praying about it and seeing what God shows us. And Dave's right. I mean, the task of getting the school up and running, at least the first couple classes, is kind of the first order of business. And well, I guess the first two orders of business is getting that going, and getting um, L418 Congo, L418 Zambia, and L418 Malawi established as national organizations within those countries. And then helping the Uganda guys and the Kenya guys get their act together, because they really don't have their act together at this point organizationally. I mean, they've started, but to be organized to handle, 50, 100 churches per country,
That's
so that
outrageous.
they can go forward. They're not there yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one step at a time.
Yeah, they're trying, but it's they deal with the same kind of things that we deal with, except with less resources. And that is, well, while they're trying to build to the vision, they have to feed their families.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the time investment in getting things done is it's happening, but it's happening slowly. So we're going to try to get some meetings set up
Sure.
over the next couple weeks with some of the leaders over there, to try to get. I mean, I'd like for L418 Kenya and L418 Uganda to be solid. We have a lot of people there and a lot of enthusiasm there, but the organizations are still forming. And, part of the issue for them is the mindset change between, how do we get things going? Oh, we go to the West and get money from the West, and we use that to build, instead of, well, we build it ourselves. So
Yeah.
that change of mindset has to happen. for them to tap into what David's talking about is really, they really have to have that mind shift. Um, because otherwise they'll be like the folks that win the lottery, right? I mean, money comes in. We have countries all over the world that had oil income and their economies grew and they were very strong, and now there's nothing left of them. I mean, Venezuela is an example. I mean, the country's a total disaster, and they had the second largest financial gain by oil in the world, and their government was wrong and structured wrong. Hey, and as a result of that, the whole economy collapsed. And the fact that they had oil money didn't make any difference at all, because they didn't have a infrastructure that was able to take those resources and utilize them properly. So we'll see. In a way, I kind of think that what the Lord's doing in the church, we're trying to do in the church, is to prepare the church to lead the country when the resources are released.
Oh, wow. Isn't
Yeah,
that the way God would have too?
yeah. Instead of the other way around, which is money starts flowing and pet projects of certain people get funded and money flows in and some people get rich and everybody else stays poor. If you build responsible stewardship somewhere,
Yeah.
and people learn how to scale it, then they can be the leaders, the next generation leaders in the countries. So
We keep praying for righteous leadership in that continent.
I was thinking the same thing, Gary. And I think Kenya is already on that path. I mean, they've got a lot of issues still, but you can see the Christian based values are strong there.
Or
yeah, it's I agree. You begin to see these things. You see the glimpses of it. At the same time, in Kenya, instead of wisely utilizing their resources, the current government leaders may have mortgaged their whole country to China.
Oh no.
Yeah, I thought they'd been voted out though.
yeah, I thought they were.
It doesn't matter that China's already invested the billions of
Well,
dollars.
yeah.
And the claim on the port in Mombasa, the claim on the infrastructure, because China built roads for them. China has a claim on a lot of resources in Kenya, and so how new leaders can get out of that using the fact that they're a sovereign nation, and it may require the United States to provide some backup for them, to basically say, we're canceling all of these things. We're not going to pay back these debts. We're canceling them. We're a sovereign nation. We don't have to do it. And we've got, they can't defend themselves against China. If China says, hey, we're coming in and it's a legal agreement. You guys agree to pay interest, to pay the debt back, or we get your port, we get your infrastructure.
What makes them different than all the rest of the countries that raped Africa?
What, China?
Good point.
There's no difference. The difference is, well, there is a difference. The difference is this, that when the Europeans came in, they just kind of took over. When the Chinese came in, they basically ensured the wealth of a ruling class of Africans. So a ruling class kind of came up during the revolution when the countries became independent, and that ruling class basically adopted the European way of taking money. So they've been taking money, instead of the Europeans taking money out of Africa, the ruling class of Africans have been taking money out of Africa and leaving it poor. And those guys did the deals with China, and so they've already been paid off. And so, but the difference is that
That's probably why they did it that way.
China has legal contracts. so they can claim ownership of resources within African countries. And when the Europeans came in, they just kind of took over. There was no legal contracts. There was nothing that the Europeans could do or the Africans could do. There was no world court. There was no UN. There was none of that thing. So now all of that stuff is in place for China to hold up the paper and say, hey, you said if you didn't pay it off, we could take the port in Mombasa, for example.
Oh,
That's written in those contracts. The Chinese actually specified what resources they wanted in each country. The diamond mines and the copper mines in some countries, the land that produces food in some countries, the ports and the infrastructure in other countries. Those are in those contracts. And the people and the politicians just said, sure, let's go, come build roads, come build some infrastructure for us, get the people off our back. So that's what happened. That's what's been happening over the last 20 years in Africa. And now the question is, okay, when China comes to collect, what will African leadership do? And Christian principles aren't going to be good enough. They're really going to need the guidance of the Holy Spirit to tell them what to do on how to walk through this stuff. And
Well, at least they're open to that.
yeah, that's why my feeling is that some of the work that we're doing in the churches now to teach them about responsibility and transparency and instead of just saying, well, give me my money and let me build something and I'll take what I want as the leader, and they start becoming more responsible for how they deal with the resources the Lord provides, that as that builds up within African men and women over the next 10, 15, 20 years,
Well, you can add it to your
begin to-
ITI.
What?
You can add it to your ITI.
Hopefully.
You know, how to responsibly govern money.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to add a bunch of things to ITI. We'll start with what we got and try to expand it and see what the Lord tells us to do.
I got to see what the ground is like. I want to see what the surrounding areas are like. Because
I don't know.
just
I don't know what that.
cover.
I don't know what that means, Amanda. Can you explain what you're saying?
ITI,
Yeah, the ground that's on
it's not gonna be a building.
Zambia.
Oh, you're talking about the Apostolic
Yeah, the Zambia.
Vision Center.
That's what I thought we were talking
No,
about.
we're talking about ITI, the
Well,
Yeah,
ITI is going to be
Bible
there.
College. No, it's not.
Oh, sorry.
The online Bible College.
Because that makes a difference on how much money it's going to take to build it. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think it does. I think that the cost of building a apostolic vision center, apostolic training center, I mean, they're building one that has communication so that people can go there. People that don't have service can go there and connect to ITI. But the cost of that is minimal compared to the cost of actually building it.
That's what I'm talking about. The
Cost of
building.
building, the cost of building the physical, the cost of buying the land, let's say buying the land and building a facility, getting the plumbing in, getting the electricity in, putting some solar in there so you have backup for power, putting generators in, all of that stuff, which doesn't say anything about connecting to the International Training Institute, just building the facility. We're probably talking $500,000.
Well, that is, but I'm talking about if it's in a floodplain, because that is one of the biggest problems of Africa is these guys keep building on floodplains and everything gets drowned on the first rain.
We're not going to do that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we're not going to do that.
It's just
we're not committed. We're not committed to building anything on the land that's been given us. We don't know that there's a connection between us being, between me being given land and us building a a center.
Well, what
Um,
is the land for then if you're not going to build something on it?
We don't know yet.
Are you going to grow?
the guy just gave us the land. He
Oh, so
just,
you're thinking there's oil in that lot?
no, no.
No.
The guy gave me land. I don't know what we're going to do with it. The Lord hasn't told me what we're supposed to do with the land. We don't even know if the land is big enough to build something. We don't know anything
Okay.
about it. It might be a
Okay.
small plot that's only big enough for a little church. I don't know.
Okay. I
Um,
didn't know. That was my intent. That was
we
my
have we have a
like
we have a vision. God gave us a prophetic word about building these prophetic vision centers. That's a prophetic word, and we're exploring. On the same day that we got that prophetic word, this guy came up to me and said, "I'm going to give you this land because I have a Bible college, and you've just filled in part of our one of our gaps in our theology, and as gratitude for you doing that, I'm going to give you this land." And then he asked me about 15 minutes later, "What are you going to do with the land?" And I said, "I'm going to pray about it and see what the Lord wants me to do." And once we have the details of the land, then um, I'll send a couple of our guys, our Zambia guys, down to look at it and take some pictures and give us some information so that we can see what it is. All I know is there's a new road between the town that the land is in and uh, my mind just went blank. The town that Victoria Falls is on the Zambia side. I don't remember the name of the town. I'll think of it in a minute. And there's an airport. There's an international airport at that town, so you can
Oh,
fly. You can fly in right into there. It costs a little bit more. There's smaller planes, but basically you could book a flight like we book a flight to Nairobi. I could book a flight right there and land at Victoria Falls. Probably would go to Lusaka or Harare or one of those towns and then take a smaller plane into that town. But you don't have to drive 10 hours by bus to get there. It's a 4 hour drive on a new road. So
that's
and in
good.
that same area, there's a bridge. There's a new bridge that was built that goes over to Zimbabwe. So there's it looks like there's access to
Yeah.
that area that wasn't there 5 years ago. I mean, this stuff is just relatively new. The road was opened in 2022 and the bridge was opened in 2023. So
Yeah, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. That was pretty insightful to do.
the 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 town and the area itself is impoverished. It's not,
I know.
it's not a any kind of a business center or tech center or anything like that. It's a fairly impoverished area. But for some reason, they built roads there. So
It's like God knows what he's doing, huh?
it could be that we see the land and it's 5 acres and ready to build, and
Yeah.
there's rivers and a small waterfall
Yeah,
uh,
that's my
five to
my,
ten
my
minutes away
issue.
from 5 to 10 minutes away from the property.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I want to know is it's flood boundaries. I
well,
can look at it and see. I just need to know where it is.
then the question, there's two issues. One, Amanda, is the flood boundaries, and the other issue is, has there ever been a flood there in history? So even if you're on a floodplain, if it's never happened before, then it's possible that it could, but the chances are slim. So we just don't know anything about it.
Well, I know for
All we know is the guy told me he's giving it to me. So I don't have any documentation that shows, transfer of ownership or any of that stuff. None of that stuff has happened yet.
oh,
So we'll see.
okay. Okay.
And it could be that that's not where we're building the vision center. It could be that land is for something else, maybe for a house for me to live in. Who knows?
I thought he said when he gave it to you that he bought it to build
A
a
school.
school on. Yeah.
That's what he said. He said he bought it to build a school on, but he hasn't built one there. So I want to find out more about him and about his school. And there's a lot of stuff to do with regard to that property. I'm not making the jump that because the property came the same day we got the vision that those things are connected. I'm not making that jump. I'm looking into that possibility. It seems curious that these two things would happen at the same time. But the Lord hasn't shown me the vision center being built on this property. What he has shown me is that the area looks nice. The river is nice. There's like two rivers that go through that area, and they drained. They're either the main rivers that fall over Victoria Falls. They might be the main river that falls over Victoria Falls, or one of two main rivers that fall over Victoria Falls. Victoria Falls is pretty big, so we're gonna find out. There's cool things to explore there. And having built one, let's say that the Lord releases the resources to build it. Well, building it and operating it are two different things. I mean, there's yearly money that has to be provided to hire people and run the center and all those kinds of things. And you know, I am assuming that the funding for operating it will be all local funding. But that's just me thinking. Not the Lord showing me anything. I don't see, if you build something that requires money from America to run it every year, to me, that's a mistake. Maybe the Lord will do it that way. Maybe he'll provide us money that sets up a foundation that can fund the operations of these centers. But we have to hire people. We have to train apostles to be at the center and teachers to teach all this stuff and do the sending. There's so much to this that wasn't part of what I had originally envisioned that we would be doing. One thing that I mentioned to folks when I was over there, there's an organization called LBRI. It's LBRI. It's in Switzerland. It's in a couple other countries too, but the main base is in Switzerland. And it was founded by a man named Francis Schaeffer. Francis Schaeffer was a Presbyterian theologian and seminary teacher for a Presbyterian seminary in the Midwest. And he wrote a series of books that were basically Christian philosophy to help Europeans get over their worldliness. And he saw the church in Europe falling apart, which has continued since then. And so he wrote this book called The God Who Is There, which is a fantastic book. And another second book, God Is There and Is Not Silent. And he wrote like 4 books that were all really good. And he bought this property in Switzerland along Lake, right outside Geneva, which was called LBRI. And it was basically, I think, 3 houses, Swiss style houses. So they're kind of chalets. And basically what he did over there was he moved over there with his family and he invited people to come and talk and pray. And people from all over Europe would go there, some to challenge him, well, we don't agree with your theology. And so he had this kind of center that was in effect revitalizing European theology. And when I learned about LBRI, I thought about and prayed about, should I open one in Atlanta? So I was thinking about buying some land in Atlanta and building a Pentecostal version of LBRI or a charismatic version of LBRI in the U.S. But the Lord, we had a couple opportunities. One, there was about a 20-acre plot of land that was really pretty, had a little lake on it, and was selling for very inexpensive. So we looked at trying to buy that. There was a hotel right on one of the biggest intersections in Atlanta that went up for sale, went bankrupt and went up for sale. We approached the owner of that and asked him to donate it to us. Now, give us your hotel, give us the land, give us a hotel. I think it sold for like $10 million or something. But we said, if you need a tax break today, we're your guys. Just give us a hotel. We'll take over. He didn't go for it. But it was a nice meeting. We asked. So we had a couple of opportunities that we looked at in Atlanta about, getting a piece of property that could serve as a church and also as this apostolic center. Before we didn't call it an apostolic center because we had no apostles at the time. We just had a couple of guys with dreams. So I'm praying about, okay, Lord, was that the precursor? Was that the precursor to what you're trying to release in Africa? Now, I don't know the answer to that, but we met some really cool people. One of them is coming on now, Jeffrey in Uganda.
Oh, yay.
We had a nice meal with Jeffrey while we were there. Hey, Jeffrey. Still coming on.
That was the sail club.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Jinja.
Holiness and another evangelist. Is Livingston the city near Victoria
Yeah.
Falls?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it is. Yeah, so we've already scoped out Livingston. I sent Cyprian there on vacation. His first trip to Zambia, I paid for him and Lawson and the bishop, not the one we have now, but the other bishop that was helping us. I paid for them to have a 2-day vacation in Livingston because I wanted Cyprian to check out Victoria Falls and let me know if it was cool enough for me to go down there because I've always wanted to see it. It's on my list of things to see. The largest waterfall, or the largest in terms of water volume. Niagara Falls is a close second to Victoria Falls. And before I thought Victoria Falls was at the bottom of Lake Victoria, but it's not. So anyway, we had a number of opportunities, a number of people that we talked to that are potential places where we could launch an apostolic training center, and people that have kind of that mindset. So we'll see what the Lord does. I think by the time we get to the end of 2025, we will have a clearer vision. Okay, Jeffrey, thank you, buddy. God bless you, man. It's good to have you with us. We're talking about a vision a prophetic word that we received in Zambia about building an apostolic vision center or apostolic training center in Africa. Perhaps one in Zambia, perhaps one in different countries, perhaps a number of them across different countries. Building one on the Nile River right at Lake Victoria boundary would be really nice. And that's where Jeffrey is. So that would be nice. And Jeffrey and his team have a really nice thing going there too. So they're training the next generation of leaders. So we have a lot in common with them, with what they're doing and the vision God's given them. They actually have a leadership training center that they've started in a house. And it was really exciting to hear them tell us what they're doing and to see the excitement that they have, it's from the ground up. They're building this thing from the ground up. So it's really cool what they're doing. Is really fun to share a meal with them and learn about what God's doing there. And to have them hopefully becoming part of L418 real soon. And it was cool because we were going to this really nice restaurant and kind of resort area on Lake Victoria, and we're driving through Jenga, and then all of a sudden the road disappears. I mean, it was like pure Africa. We're driving by these hotels and resorts on the lake on this horrible road that you could barely drive on. I'm going, man, this is Africa. This is the way it is. Even when you're going to a resort property, the road disappears as you're driving. So it was kind of fun, even though it was, our driver wasn't real happy about the fact that he lost the road and was driving on this big, I mean, it's obviously it seemed like they're getting ready to pave it. It was a wide dirt, lots of stuff, but the road, really nice road. And then all of a sudden, no road.
It was almost impassable.
Yeah, it was. It was exciting. It was like Amanda's been on those roads before. It was like, exactly what we experienced. Remember when we went to Fort Portal and the road was really nice and then it just disappeared for like 10 miles and then it came back. It was just like that, but in the middle of a city. Not out in the middle of a bunch of tea fields. It was right in the middle of the city, and you see nice hotels and resorts, and there's no road. Next time we go, Dave, there'll be a road there. I hope. Remember, Amanda, when we were coming into Mombasa, and we were on this really nice road, and then the last 5 miles into Mombasa was terrible. It was just the road disappeared, and then the road was all torn up in Mombasa. Cyprian told me when he went back last year to Mombasa, or year before last for Alice's funeral, that all that was cleaned up. The road was all done.
Oh, sweet.
So yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Maybe Ginger will be like that next time.
Yeah, maybe. One mile at a time. One step at a time.
So we have some discovery to do in the spirit realm over the next year to figure out what the Lord is showing us. He showed us some things that were different than our previous trips. And I don't think any of us have a real clear vision of what he was showing us. Not yet. We have the beginnings of it. We're seeing glimpses of it, but we don't know exactly what this is that he's calling us to do. So that's going to be the challenge and the fun, when God tells you something and he's telling you what, the fruit of what, or the next steps. Maybe it's out in the future. Maybe it's something that we help stage, but we don't actually build. I don't know. I'm making no assumptions about it. It could be that, 2 years from now, this stuff will all be built. It could be that it's built after we're gone. I don't know. But God gave Connie the prophetic word, and Dave saw a flag planted in the Rongo area. So, we're going to take every piece of information that he provided us on this trip and pray it through and see what he wants us to do with it. Simple things like we don't have any money. That's almost irrelevant when it comes to dealing with things in the Lord. if he wants to, if he's doing it and we see it in heaven done, then we know the resources will be there in the physical realm to do it. That's just a matter of figuring out what, discovering them, not necessarily creating them. So, so it's fun and it's fun. But it's also very challenging to see that, what I envision that we would be doing, which is starting a training institute, getting a few countries going, trying to help the leaders of L418 in Africa take ownership and begin to operate on their own. I mean, that was the completion of the vision that I saw before, and now there's another component, which is um, an expansion of that. So just a logistical thing that I'll mention. We'll have a we'll have an L418 International Sunday meeting next Sunday on the 15th. And then the next one will be on the 5th of January. So we won't have a meeting on the 22nd or 29th. The next meeting we'll have will be on the 5th of January. And on the 12th of January is when I plan on starting the new series on the Gospel of John, the new teaching series. I'm planning on starting it on the 12th of January. So just so you guys know, so you can kind of set up your calendar, Jeffrey, you and everyone who's watching on YouTube, you can set up your calendars. We'll be together next week. And then on the 5th, I'm assuming right now we'll be together on the 5th, but the 12th will be the day that we start the new teaching series on the Gospel of John. And I'm excited about that teaching series. It's one that I've been wanting to do for probably 3 years, and the Lord hasn't given me the green light to do it until in September of this year. End of September of this year, He gave me the green light to teach you the Gospel of John. I thought I'd do the Gospel of John before I did Revelation, but He had me do Revelation first. So there was stuff in Revelation that we needed to get before 2024 happened. Dave, anything you'd like to share about your first trip to Africa? Any reflections or?
I was just surprised at how heavy the spiritual bondage was there. Sorry, I still have a tickle in my throat. It was so soothing to the heart to be around the people there, the believers there. Were so open and so friendly, and that was a little different than what I see here.
Yeah.
Very big open hearts, and love God very openly, and that was fun to be around. I just had a good time there, spiritually and physically. Um, I'm still kind of taking it all in. Um, God isn't showing me things yet of what's to come. I did think when that guy came up and gave you the land, and we had just been dealing with Connie's vision, and the Apostolic Center was on our mind, and I thought, oh my gosh, look how fast God moves. That's what I thought when that land fell on your lap. And that's a little different than what uh, you didn't assume the same thing that I did at that point.
Yeah.
Um,
For,
I
for me,
forget what
for me,
else.
Dave, it would be it would be fantastic if that was the case. I mean, the the beauty of the area and the closeness to Livingston. If somebody could come there and spend a week or two and be trained and take a day trip over to Livingston and see the falls and go down to the river. There's small waterfalls right there in that area.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the possibility of them having a good experience um, in that area, as well as, spiritually, as well as just kind of a time to relax and reflect. It seems to be perfect for that, depending on what the land is. So I'm not discounting that possibility. I'm just not, I haven't, I'm not ready to take a shovel out and start breaking land yet.
Yeah. I just feel really privileged that I was able to go. Um, I hope we go again in 2 years, although I know there's some obstacles to that.
Me too, Dave. I want to go back, and I'm really privileged to go with you and Gary and
Yeah.
Josh and Connie, all of you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really a privilege to be a part of God's work like that. That was fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, one of you mentioned the openness. The reality of the spirit realm is one of the starkest differences. I mean, to me, when you first go, the first thing that kind of caught my eye was the poverty and
Yeah.
the way people live. Not all of them, but many of them. Um, and even the folks that live in the city, they they talk about going back to the village. Like Cyprian lives in Nairobi, but he goes back to where his parents are. And when Chris and I were there last time, we actually saw his parents' land. His parents' house was falling down, and L418 provided some funds to help with that situation. But Jolinga talks about going back to his village, and people that are in the cities, they're living a Westerner would call a more normal life. They have an apartment, they got electricity, they got all those things, and then next thing you know, well, I was in the village and we didn't have any power for a week, and and you drive through those villages, as we're driving around, you drive through them and you see them and you see the way that people live. So that's one thing that's a difference. And then the second thing that struck me the first time I went was the reality of the spirit realm is weaved into their life. And so, unfortunately, it's because of the openness of worshiping other gods and the witchcraft and all of those things, which are part of their life. But, we in the West, we just write that off as superstition. Oh, they're just superstitious, primitive kind of people. Well, they're not superstitious, primitive kind of people anymore. Some of them have PhDs and master's degrees, and they're still engaging in those kinds of things. So, um, it's just, it hasn't been covered up there. And in the West, it's been covered up. So all of that stuff operates in the West, but it operates underground. And now in the West, we're dealing with the emergence of those things. Those things are now emerging. Turn on the TV and look at modern television. It's full of witchcraft. It's full of magic. It's full of those kinds of things. and they're kind of tongue in cheek, but not really. I mean, they're treating them as if they're real now in the, in the movies and the TV, that which 20 years ago was barely talked about. In Africa, those things have been on the surface all along. They never went underground. And the only place where they're underground, as you guys ran into, is sometimes in the church, where people don't want to admit that they have witchcraft elements in their life because they're not supposed to have those things. And so they don't want to talk about it, right? So that's the only place where it's hidden, but in the villages and it's out in the open. So that the openness of people recognizing and dealing with the spirit realm is the other thing, which is, a dramatic contrast. When you come back to the West and you see those elements in the West, it gives you a sharper vision to pick those things out. That was my experience. And then, as you mentioned, the people are wonderful. They're just wonderful people. And I spend most of my time when I'm over there with Christians. So, I'm biased towards the believers because that's who I hang out with when I'm over there. But they're just fantastic people who love the Lord. And it's cool to be around them. It's cool to, like you guys were talking about how you had a couple young women who helped you with your ministry and interpreted for you and you trained. For me, that's just part of what the experience is. Cyprian was one of those people, right? Cyprian showed up in 2016 in Uganda. And I didn't know he was some little guy that showed up and was enthusiastic about it and wanted to be part of our ministry like right away. And so we said, okay, we'll try to figure out how to do that. And now he's secretary of L418 International. So any one of those people, those young women or young men that we met, in a few years could end up leading a large segment of L418. I mean, Jeffrey could from Jinga. I mean, Nora, the interpreter that I had in Buera, I'm in communication with her. Her and her guys are building expanding their church building. We had the folks in Barara, and we have people all the time who step up and participate with us. And it could very well be, we could go back in 2 years or 4 years and find that they're running things over there. So that excites me, particularly the younger guys, as they catch the vision for what we're doing and decide this is what I want to do. I think there's going to be more and more people that do that. I think the guys from Malawi, that was the sense that I had from them. They're ready to go. I don't want to go slow in Malawi. I want to try to move that along quickly. The guys in the Congo, they're ready to go. The guys in Zambia, they're ready to go. The guys in the Rongo area, they're ready to go. The guys in Busia, Bishop Benjamin and his guys, they're ready to go. So you got all of these people that are ready to go and see how we can facilitate and help them get going. And in the midst of that, we have this new prophetic word that adds another layer to what God's is trying to do over there. So it's pretty exciting. Chris, you have anything that you'd like to add? Any reflections on our last trip you'd like to share with everyone?
Not really, except that it was a great trip and your leadership was great. And I'm thankful that Josh and I got to go pray for people. I think that was important. And I enjoyed I always like to do a little testimony. I like to tell about my daughter's faith. Of course, with Gary, we like to tell about miracles in Africa, but I like to tell about that because the most depressing thing that we deal with is to go into the tents and 100 women come to us and say, my husband lost his job and I can't feed my children. What do I do? And of course we pray, but I know Jesus can help him. I just don't know why he's not. So It's my experience that Jesus will take care of our needs. I didn't say do more than that. Need may be a crust of bread a day, but but he'll take care of us. And these women survived, but it is heartbreaking. So, but I'm thankful to have that opportunity when we go. Thank you, Gary.
Well, I mean, every member of the team, and this is what we've experienced every time we went. Every member of the team was essential to us doing the things that God put before us to do. And that's the way it's been every trip. We have different people go and different trips, but each time, I mean, I can't think of a single trip that I've been on with L418 where every person contributed, every person was essential. The work that the Lord gave us to do, He knows who's coming, and he knows what our team is. He knows who's coming, and so he fully takes advantage of us in the midst of our weaknesses and everything else. He takes advantage of who we are and what He's poured into us, and pours stuff out of us that we didn't even know was there sometimes. Joellen, do you have any other questions for us or anything else you'd like to know about what we experienced?
No, I can't think of anything else. It's just my heart is that I think what we don't see in our hearts is we're expanded by being exposed to the truth of Africa and their struggles, and to be in tune with that in our own prayer life, even though we haven't had the experience. I'm just thrilled. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Amanda, anything you'd like to share with us about, I mean, you guys were praying every night for a month, supporting us in Africa and whatever else came up. I'm sure you did more than just support us in the Africa trip. Any reflections on the prayer time and what you guys were up to while we were over there?
Well, we're open to hear what the Lord has to say, of course, and available to add. I do a lot of asking. I'm always pulling on God's. Can we ask? I'm always asking. And so we did a lot of that. Plus, I was really impressed in how much coverage you guys had. And I'm used to hearing and seeing what Dave sees in the spirit, every night. So I know, you know, that what to pray for when he tells me what he sees. So thankfully there was a communication enough to show, he was telling me what he was seeing in the spirit. And so we were praying, all of us were praying, to empower that. And so basically that was the dynamic, is being with you guys and praying along with you. And my experience and Andrew's experience being there in Africa knows all the little silly things that happen. So we prayed in advance for all those silly things so they don't happen. But I didn't think that the luggage rack would come off on the very last, bit a stretch off
Yeah,
of
we hit the overhang
Yeah. I didn't include that in my I just I never thought that, so now I will. But we were trying to protect that luggage. That was part of our prayer. And I know the conditions of there's a road and then all of a sudden there's no road and then there's a road and then there's no road. And and all these silly things, that I know, and so does Andrew. So we added to the prayer of that.
You know, one thing that was really good about that luggage experience in Elsamere was that the rack did come off. Because if it hadn't come off, my suitcase would have been crushed.
Oh no.
Because there was two suitcases up front, and my suitcase and the other suitcase was beside me were the ones that hit. The rack didn't hit. What hit was our suitcases.
Uh-huh.
And because they were so, and this is a testimony to Joshua and the guys' diligence in having everything tightly put together. The luggage was so tight on there that it literally, when it hit, what gave was the weakest link, which was the rack itself and its connection onto the van. And so I got a little small scratch on my suitcase. That's all. So there was enough impact that it knocked the rack off of the car, but the impact was against my suitcase, and my
Oh,
suitcase was just scratched.
you took the hit for everybody, huh?
Well, there was two. There was another one. I don't know. It was one of the black ones. I don't know whose other suitcase was on there, but I know my suitcase had a small indentation, a small scratch where it hit. And when it hit, I went up there and I said, I know my suitcase is in the front. And so I was expecting my suitcase to be caved in. I really was, because we hit pretty hard. We weren't going fast, but we hit pretty hard. And when I got out, what I could see, because the tarp was laying over my suitcase. So
Oh,
what
yeah.
I could see, because the rack moved and the tarp kind of drove forward. The rack was half off the van. Half of it was off the van. And I went, oh crap, my suitcase is gone. So I was thinking, I gotta think, where am I gonna buy a new suitcase? We're gonna have to get to Nairobi early. I'm gonna have to get a new suitcase and repack all my stuff. And that was what was going through my mind. And then they pulled the suitcases down and it was just scratched a little bit. I went, oh, this is nice. I'm so glad the rack came off and my suitcase didn't collapse.
So, that was a new one for me. So, so we'll be covering that next time.
Yeah, we had
Yeah.
trouble with the rack just about the whole trip.
Yeah.
That's typical though.
The other
So,
the other thing that happened, Amanda, you'll like, was we were praying when we were going through Uganda. We were using your prayer technique for praying for invisibility and those kinds of things. And
we
and
prayed about
it worked for a little while, then it stopped working. And so then I took a different approach. And when the police would pull us over and the guy would come up, I'd just start, hey, God bless you. How you doing? What's going on? And I'd start talking about Jesus to the guy, and they all let us go. I mean, they were interrogating every time. They said, oh, your tires are not good. Oh, they were doing that stuff. And I said, well, we're not invisible. So maybe there's a reason for these guys to be able to see us. And
yeah.
so that started happening. And then after a while, we'd stop and they'd see me and I'd say, hey, how you doing? They'd just say, go. They wouldn't even talk.
Oh, wow, that's
They just
nice.
waved us forward. So we developed a new technique.
Well, that was part of our prayer though. That was
Yeah.
part of our prayer. If they get stuck, if they get pulled over, we pray, Father, that they would let them go.
Yeah.
So we prayed for that.
We got an opportunity to share Jesus with them and talk to them about the Lord, and
They
I don't,
already,
all of them weren't Christians, but a lot of the policemen were Christians.
yeah, they normally are. So
Yeah.
that was, that was the silly things, we prayed for bugs not to bite you guys and just silly things, And but the big things, we got some words from the Lord to add to what Revelations, and Beth got Revelations too from Josh and Chris. And so we were just being a part of the group, just not there directly. So we were just, asking for coverage, and asking all these different things for the big demons, the big territorial guys. And just adding to what you guys are doing. That's all. It worked.
Yeah, it was really good. One thing I mentioned yesterday a little bit, and I didn't talk a lot about it, was that in in each location, we had private meetings with, smaller group meetings with leaders. And all of those meetings were really good. Our meeting in Jingo with Jeffrey and his friends was good. Our meetings in each place in Zambia, we met with the Malawi leaders for one meeting. I met with the Zambian leaders for another meeting, separate from the conference in the evenings. We met with the leaders in each town, at each conference. We had at least one evening meeting, if not two. And most of the time it was me. Cyprian was there sometimes, but it was mostly just me and the leaders. And those meetings went very well. And we had an opportunity to really share with get some feedback from the guys and hear what was going on in their ministry, as well as answer their questions about L418. So those were all really good, and they were as important as what was going on during the conference itself, because it's a way of showing the guys that we really care for them. And for many of these guys to be able to come, 10 or 12 or 8 of them, and sit in the room with me and just talk, it's really important to them to get that kind of personal attention for their ministry, and to be able to ask the questions that they want to ask, and not be afraid that they're going to be embarrassed or anything. So that was all really good. Okay, anybody else have anything else they want to add? Zoom user.
And shut down. Gary's down.
No, he's here.
You're back. You're a Zoom user.
I'm a Zoom user. What is that?
Account.
That's your name. I can't. There you are. Yeah. Hi, Zoom user.
Hi. So I don't know. My computer just stopped.
Yeah. Well, while you guys were gone, I was just talking about a little bit about the small group meetings that we had in the evenings in each location, that I had, as an apostle, just meeting with that's a good thing. With a small group. And we got to meet with the Rwanda guys, we got to meet with the Malawi guys, we got to meet with the Zambia guys, with the Uganda guys in each city. We got to meet with the Rongo group. So we had those small group meetings where they were able to ask me questions and challenge something that they heard that they didn't understand or didn't like, and share a little bit about their own ministry. So it was kind of one-on-one, small group, kind of personal time. And I think those small group meetings were as important as the conferences, in terms of showing the leadership, the African leaders, that it's really about them, and being able to cast vision to them, so that they know that this is really their ministry, that they're not helping us with our ministry, but it's the other way around. We're helping them build their ministry. And that mind shift, it's to us, it seems pretty obvious, but to them, it's not so obvious, because they're used to people coming from the West and building a version of themselves in Africa, and instead of coming and trying to pour into them, and so that it becomes theirs. So those were all of those meetings were all very good. There wasn't a bad one among them. They were all very good, and the reaction was very good.
That's good.
That was another part of what we did that most people don't see, because it's usually just me, or maybe me and Cyprian in the room with African guys.
I agree.
And we had a good mix of men and women in previous meetings. Some of them were all guys, but in each one of these, there were both men and women leaders present. So that was encouraging to me. And we also had a good group of not, before a lot of times the more senior bishops would kind of predominate and the younger guys wouldn't get in. But this time we had a good mix of different ages too.
That's
in the
good. Yeah.
small group.
That's what that's what it needs. That's very important. I'm glad you did have those.
So I guess that's all I have to share today. I'm not sure next week what I'm going to talk about. I'll have a lesson next week, but I'm not sure what it's going to be, whether it'll be kind of closing of the um, kingdom of heaven. That's kind of what I think it'll be, or whatever the Lord gives me to share with you guys next time. And then we'll be off. Also, for those of you in San Diego and Atlanta, we will not be having a meeting on the 21st. I got a message from
Mary Delosier.
yeah, from Mary that they're not going to be open for a meeting that day. So next week's meeting at Amanda's house, meeting/party, will be our last meeting for December. So I'm glad we were able to have the meeting last night and pray for people.
Yeah.
We won't be having another one of those until January. And in January, we'll start on, for sure, we'll start on the 12th. We may or may not have a meeting on the 4th. We'll have to see how that goes. Because of the first of, the first is on a Wednesday, so maybe we'll have a meeting on the 4th, and we'll certainly have a meeting on the 11th. So we'll see how the schedule goes. It'll firm up over the next few days for the start of January. But we should have a meeting here for L418 International on Sunday on the 5th of January. That'll be our next meeting, and I suspect that on the 5th I'll do kind of an introduction to the teaching on the Gospel of John, and then we'll start on the 12th with the Gospel of John. That's what I think is going to happen in January. But for December, next Saturday and Sunday will be our last meetings in December for L418. And Amanda and Dave are preparing to greet us and party with us on the 14th, have our Christmas party. So that'll be fun.
I'm doing the easy part. He's doing the hard part.
Well, that's good. He's well trained for the hard part.
It's like
Anybody? Hi, Sonia. Sonia made it on. Anybody have anything else they'd like to share? Chris joined us too. Chris.
Chris?
Yeah, he cloned himself.
And no, that might be
Is that
Beth.
a clone of Chris, or is that a different Chris?
It's probably Beth and Chris. Oh,
Yeah, could be. Okay, so anybody have anything else they want to add before we call it a day today?
Maybe just to thank you, Gary, for all your hard, endless work for L418 and the trip. It never would happen without all the work that you put in, and Cyprian as well. Such a big job to take on.
he's good at it too.
So we thank you for that.
I appreciate that, Dave. You're definitely welcome. I'm glad we're able to do it. And it's been a great joy for me to be able to go over there and to make so many good friends, to have loved ones over in Africa that 10 years ago I didn't even know and didn't even imagine that we would be able to do this. So there's many very large churches and large organizations that are unable to pull off what we're doing. And I'm just grateful that the Lord has showed us how to do what we're doing so that we can be successful and in contributing to his kingdom work over there. So but you're right, it's a lot of work. It takes most of the year to get it all ready. And Cyprian works really, really hard.
Yeah, he
Uh,
does.
to me, that's the beauty of it, is to see Cyprian and the guys over there taking ownership of a lot of the planning. I didn't have to do much of that, the underground planning. I just had to ask Cyprian questions. Well, Cyprian, what about this? What about this? What about this? And he's been through it enough times now that he kind of knows what is expected. And I think the only real hiccup we had was that one night in Zambia where we didn't have any power. We pulled into a dark hotel at 10 o'clock at night and the power was gone. And
Yeah.
that was a little tricky, but it turned out well. I mean, it was no problem. We were able to get a good night's sleep and had a good breakfast, and off in the morning to head to the airport. So it worked out okay. But other than that, everything else was just the normal kind of stuff that we deal with. Even the illnesses. I mean, we've had people have a few bad days and and struggle with their health throughout the trip. We get to experience the healing, the wounded healer concept, right, firsthand.
Yeah.
We're struggling with health issues ourselves, and people that we're praying for getting healed. And the Lord taught me that early in the ministry. I don't get, I pray that people don't get what I got, and that what they have they get rid of. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. I understand quite. I understand.
all right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We will be back next week, next Friday, next Sunday on the 15th for another L418 International Sunday meeting. And you guys have a fantastic week. And we'll see you next weekend. God bless you all. Bye.
That's you.
Bye-bye.
Bless you.
Bye, everybody.